If I had a nickel for every superhero show that had a fantastic third season this year, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. So yeah, with The Boys Season 3 being absolutely amazing and wrapping up in early July, I was massively excited for late July's premiere of Harley Quinn Season 3. And like The Boys, Harley Quinn managed to keep its quality consistently good, and I'm happy to say that Season 3 was great. Mostly. You see, Season 3 is able to do almost everything right, but trips up a little bit in certain areas that hurt this season somewhat. But I'll get into that later, because one thing that I want to get out of the way right now is that this season doesn't slip up at all in the comedy department, as it continues to be a total riot. One of the best aspects of the entire show is its way of turning the DC universe on its head and putting aspects of the real world into it, and having characters act like actual people and not just stereotypical comic book characters, leading to some pretty funny interactions.
Gordon, you brilliant buffoon. There's only one thing better than money.
The love of a woman?
What? No.
And it's able to put a lot of its humor into regular dialogue as well, and it fits perfectly, and doesn't detract from the situations or decrease tension at all. So of course, I absolutely adore it. The way the characters continue to be fun and relatable as a psychotic clown lady with a baseball bat can be, is great. And this season does especially well at building the characters up more from the previous season. Harley and Ivy are still great together, and their chemistry is stronger than ever here. Clayface and King Shark keep providing great comedic relief that never fails to get a chuckle out of me.
One with lumbar support, perhaps. Please, James Gunn, sit on me.
The Bat Family is here even more so than the last season, and they were really fun to be around. I mean, Nightwing having an existential crisis was funnier than it had any right to be at all.
If the Bat Family knew about it, they'd know what a failure I was!
If it was big news, don't you think they'd already know about it?
I'm gonna kill myself.
You do not have to do that. We're gonna die in like 3.5 minutes.
Not fast enough!
On top of Batman getting more development with his parental issues, and those being way more prevalent here than usual.
These cats are special. They're Persian. I named them Martha and Thomas.
After your dead parents.
I didn't realize.
Hell, even Bane gets a bit of a story here where there's this whole thing about a pasta maker and him also going through an existential crisis, on top of still being treated like garbage.
Like Joker do. Grodd is here. Dressed in a tux. And so is Bane. Too bad he sucks.
And I just want to say this quickly, I don't know what this show has against me, but they just happen to have killed my favorite Batman villains, or they happen to be Bane.
I hate this place. I will take the full fury of my business elsewhere.
Getting back on track though, the show does a great job with using its side characters. Every one of them is highly entertaining. Case in point, this season gave us an entire episode dedicated to Joker, and it was hysterical. Seeing him in a situation that doesn't involve his usual homicidal tendencies, but instead puts him in a school parent drama situation was hilarious. And then he runs for mayor out of spite? None of it was expected, and I loved all of it. It surprisingly fit really well into the story. Hell, the finale was set up by another subplot involving Clayface pretending to be Billy Bob Thornton in a biopic about Thomas Wayne being directed by James Gunn. I mean, as insane as that all sounds, the fact that it all works together and just fits here is completely bonkers, and it's wonderful. And hell, even some of the characters that don't show up in the finale or play that big of a role were great too. I mean, Swamp Thing became my new favorite character here, and he was in only one episode.
Hey, you two. Chai lattes?
Probably my favorite aspect about this season was the underlying message about relationships in general and what's best for each person involved. Like how Ivy and Harley's was pretty much about being supportive of one another's goal and trying to make them work while understanding each other's boundaries. Another was Joker actually trying to be a good stepfather to his new family and be there for them, and not losing sight of the things that are most important. Or Bruce and Selina figuring out what they want out of their relationship, or if they are really right for each other. The season weaves this kind of stuff throughout, and it helps ground a lot of the insane scenarios and characters even more. Like, we're getting a story about Poison Ivy wanting to basically destroy all of Gotham with plant life, while at the same time being about Bruce's relationship status. It all fits so naturally here, and it just feels perfect and not out of place whatsoever, which just goes to show how good the writing is here. However, Like the thumbnail says, this season isn't without flaws. Not to the point where it's ruined, but definitely where it's noticeable and hurts it a little bit. And although this is not really a flaw, one thing that was a little jarring for me was how the season moved a bit away from certain characters and locales that were in the last 2 seasons. Like how the group's main lair, a closed down mall, is leveled in the 2nd episode of this season, which I didn't mind as much, and it helped change up the scenery when they moved into Catwoman's apartment. That was okay. What I did have a bit of an issue with was how some of the series' characters that were pretty important beforehand were barely in this season at all, like Cyborgman and Kite Man, who were only in 1 episode each. Like, Cy in this season is now connected to the internet, and with something like that, the writers could have used him to craft some really funny jokes, or help the plot. I mean, being connected to the internet should be way more important than just a bit of a throwaway line. But instead, he gets less than a minute of screen time for the whole season. For a character that's had a significant role to play since season 1, and then to have him show up as basically a glorified cameo, is pretty jarring and pretty baffling. The same can be said for Kite Man too, although he fares a little bit better than Cy, since he shows up during an entire episode rather than just a minute of screen time. However, it's nonetheless jarring to see another character who was introduced in season 1 and played a big role in that and in season 2 not have anything to do or be here is jarring. And now this wouldn't be as bad if there wasn't this one thing, which is how the aftermath of Harley and Ivy's relationship behind Kite Man's back didn't really negatively affect him in any way. And honestly, his life is now better. He's been recognized as a villain more, and he's gotten a new girlfriend that seems to be more compatible with him than Ivy. All of that stuff is nice, but it doesn't really help with what should have happened in the fallout of Season 2. Though this is all addressed at the end of the episode with a conversation between Kite Man and Harley that sums up everything well. I guess the issue I have is how rushed this plotline felt, because the fact that the events of the Season 2 finale up to the Season 3 premiere were about a single month apart in the show makes it seem like all this stuff should be fresh in everyone's minds, but it's for the most part blown off. So what I'm trying to say here is that the plot about the aftermath of Season 2's finale wasn't addressed enough, or in an entirely satisfying way, which is worsened with there being no further appearances from Kite Man. I mean, hell, him and Ivy don't even get to talk to each other one-on-one or anything about what happened. Personally, I think he should have been in this season more and actually been given something to do. However, all of that may not have been focused on or worked out well because this season has a lot of different plots and subplots going on, and this is where the problems start to shine through. And it's how Season 3 is not able to balance its time between all the characters very well because it focuses on Harley and Ivy's relationship, Ivy's plan for Eden, Clayface and his role in the biopic, King Shark dealing with giving up the throne, Bruce and Selina's relationship, Nightwing's relationship with the Bat family, Batgirl and Harley's growing friendship, Joker becoming mayor, Gordon trying to prove himself, Bruce's repressed trauma, Kite Man and his new girlfriend, Ivy leading the new Legion of Doom. I think you get the point.
Now, a lot of this stuff is actually well developed here, like Harley and Ivy's relationship as mentioned before. But there's more subplots here than in the previous 2 seasons, and it really doesn't work that well. A great example of this is in episode 7, where we have 4 different plots happening at the same time. The subplot about King Shark giving up the throne was funny, and it was nice to learn a bit more about his character, but this happens in 1 episode, and it's never mentioned again except lightly in 2 more. It just kind of feels as though the writers didn't have anything for King Shark in particular to do. So they just gave him a what should be important moment in his life and then didn't know what to do with it afterwards. The better side plot was definitely with Clayface, since it took place over the course of the season and actually played a part in the finale, in addition to it being legitimately hilarious and helping break up the main plot going on in a well done manner. And although I wouldn't say all of the subplots are like that, there are clearly some that don't have as much time to be fleshed out as other ones, which is a bit of a detriment to the whole season and makes it feel truncated. But I think a major part that played in everything being truncated was the fact that this season was 3 episodes shorter than the previous 2. which explains the rushed nature of some of the aspects of this season. Having those 3 additional episodes would have helped the pacing as well, since it would have given time to everything being more fleshed out, like the aforementioned King Shark subplot. Maybe even playing a bit of a factor into the zombie apocalypse, which, yeah, this season has a zombie apocalypse, which only lasts 1 episode and doesn't have a ton of ramifications, compared to another apocalypse in the previous season that lasted 3 episodes and had ramifications. So I think that gives you a good idea of how some of the stuff here is underdeveloped. Though I can't find a reason as to why this season only got 10 episodes instead of the regular 13. But I would probably put money on it having to do with the pandemic, as Season 2 was released just as it was beginning, and there was a 2-year hiatus until the 3rd season. So with everyone having to work from home and deal with long-distance production, I can see why this season was scaled down a bit. However, it was trying to bite off a little bit more than it could chew, and it does suffer a little bit for it. But with everything taken into consideration, I'm glad Season 3 turned out great and comedically hilarious, since it not only keeps the show enjoyable to watch, but also progresses the characters' relationships and arcs in natural ways that fit perfectly, even in a shorter time span. Yes, the issues like some of the plots not working entirely well together hurt the show somewhat, and I do think that further departure from Seasons 1 and 2 makes everything feel a little off. But it doesn't hinder my overall enjoyment of this season, since it was able to still work off of everything that was laid out beforehand very well. I just think it was a little too ambitious with what it wanted to do. So for me, Harley Quinn Season 3, it gets an 8 out of 10. I'm excited to see what's in store for Season 4, especially with how well the finale set up some really interesting plot points to be explored. Plus, a Valentine's Day special was recently announced as well, so I'm even more excited. I love this show, and I'm happy to see it's still going strong. I hope the special is great and Season 4 can stick the landing once they come out, in addition to being absolutely hilarious.
I'll bring Harley and Ivy to justice, and then you'll change your tune. Everyone's gonna be whistling Jimmy Garden, baby. Fuck you. No, fuck you.